Alright everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and we're going to talk about Games for Diversity. This is a company we've talked about before. They're a Dutch company. They're tied to the Powell Group, which recently partnered up with Sweet Baby Inc. All of these guys are involved with each other in one way or another, it seems, as you dig deeper and deeper and start to pick the scabs off of things. Anyway, they got some really nasty stuff going on behind the scenes. Let's cue up to music and we'll talk about it. Alright, so this is talking about video game corruption exposed. Games for Diversity appears caught in heinous scheme for radical pride agenda. So, if it's one thing I cannot tolerate, it is targeting children with stuff like this. And I've spoken about that in the past on this channel. It always seems to go eventually for the children. We've seen it a lot with the LGBT pride agenda. We've seen it with Drag Queen Story Hour. You've seen stuff like Desmond is Amazing, where you've got these little kids dressed up as drag queens dancing provocatively. The men are giving them money and stuff, and the left will argue that, oh, it's all in good fun. Oh, it's just like Hooters. No, my dude, it is not like Hooters, okay? It is so not like Hooters. Don't even go there. Don't try to make that comparison. Doing that is like, you're vile. If you can support this in any way, shape, or form, you're vile. And let's not even talk about puberty blockers and, trans surgery for children. Children don't know anything, okay? That's why they can't do certain things until they're adults. Their brains aren't fully developed. They're incapable of making decisions for themselves, right? You don't let children go out and, if you ask a child, what do you want for dinner? They're going to say, 47 packets of ketchup. Go tell your kid to dress himself to go to school. It's going to look like a clown. Kids don't know, man. They need guidance from parents. We teach them how to be adults, how to function in society and all that. And they need guidance. And unfortunately, we've got a generation of parent now that feels like, oh, let kids be kids. Let them do whatever they want. And if they want to, if they think they're a girl, let's dress them like a little girl. And let's block their puberty so that they don't develop male hormones just in case, right? When I was a little kid, I wanted to be Superman. I told my dad I'm Superman. I wrapped a towel around my neck. Look, I'm Superman. I'm flying around. I'm Superman. My dad did take me and throw me off the damn roof and say, fly. He's like, you're not Superman, dude. But enjoy playing. I used to sit in my bed at night and pretend I was driving a submarine and shooting torpedoes and stuff like that as a little kid. Doing the sonar and all that. He didn't fill my room with water. Damn, where did these parents come from? They're idiots. It's not the fault of the children. But anyway, let's get into this story a little bit here. A shocking revelation has come to light regarding the practices of Games for Diversity, a Dutch company with ties to the Powell Group and Sweet Baby Inc. that claims to promote inclusion in gaming, but appears to operate under questionable methods. That Park Place is reporting on the findings of an investigation by prominent entertainment analysts. Recently exposed by Gothic Therapy YouTube channel hosted by Master of the TDS and Writing Raven, the company is under fire for allegedly publishing a deeply flawed research study in 2014 that flew under the radar until now. The study has been labeled by critics as biased propaganda rather than legitimate science. What's more, it uses children as guinea pigs and exposes them to games that focus on preferred orientation and mature issues. Yeah, this is so gross, man. Using kids like this in the culture war is gross. I've seen them talk at pride parades, flat out stating, we're coming for your children. And the reason they're doing that is because they can't have kids of their own. And the slippery slope's often been referred to as a fallacy. It's not a fallacy. It's not a logical fallacy. The slippery slope is a reality. We watched it happen with the whole LGBT agenda here in the United States. And back in the day when gay marriage was proposed and homosexual couples wanted to get married, a lot of people opposed it for various reasons. Well, they don't want this. It's not, it's an abomination in the eyes of God and all that. I had a slightly different perspective of it. I'm like, well, we don't need to force the church to do it, right? Because the church, it goes against the various religions. So I get that they don't have to do that. But if there wants to be a union of some sort, and it's the equivalent of a marriage, and they want to get a marriage certificate issued by the state or whatever, so that they can make decisions for each other in the event of a catastrophic event, someone falls ill, there's an accident or something like that, for purposes of insurance and things like that. I get it. I had no problem with that whatsoever. I was like, well, I get it. That's, it's kind of cruel to deny them that kind of stuff. And, a lot of people are like, well, it's going to lead to different things. And, and here we are down the road. And yeah, that was kind of like the beginning of the slippery slope where things have just gotten worse and worse and worse. Would I take that away from them? No, I would not take that away. That would be inhumane at this point. I mean, it really would be. It would be inhumane at any point. People deserve the right to be happy, and people deserve the right to live their lives the way they do. But we don't all have to celebrate your life and the way you live it. You don't need a Pride Month. We don't need to all see all our various products that we buy wrapped in rainbows and all that garbage. We don't need to see a bunch of you running down the street for a whole month dressed up in your rainbow flags and all that kind of stuff, and all your various flags with your wieners out, little kids there, and all this other stuff. We don't need it. We don't need to see you in every movie. We don't need to see you represented in every video game. It's unnatural, and it's misrepresentation. It's over-representation at this point. And quite frankly, it's pandering. And everyone's tired of it. Normal people are tired of it. So, let's just accept the fact that, hey, you guys can get married. You can live your life. Nobody's persecuting you. Nobody's throwing you off of buildings. Nobody's burning you at the stake or putting you in conversion therapy. Live your life. Be happy. Be normal within, and enjoy your sexuality behind closed doors like we do. And leave it at that. Anyway, at the center of this controversy is Menno van Peltdien, the head of Games for Diversity and the researcher responsible for this study in question. The research, published on Google Scholar, analyzed game design processes during the organization's Pride-centric game jams. While the surface-level goal was to explore how diverse perspectives influence game development, a deeper dive into the study reveals glaring methodological flaws. Master of the TDS, a therapist and one of Gothic Therapy's hosts, emphasized the gravity of the situation. As a therapist, I know very well what peer-reviewed sources are, he said. A peer-reviewed source means a lot of people have looked at it. It means it's much more valid than other sources. The fact that this was allowed to be published and has remained up boggles my mind. Because of all the things you have done wrong, it is so biased and skewed that it can't even begin to tell people. Now, the most glaring issue with the research is the absence of a control group. By failing to compare diverse teams to non-diverse ones, the study's conclusions are rendered invalid. Instead, participants were handpicked from agenda-friendly websites, academic circles, and similar sources, ensuring a pre-existing bias that skewed results from the outset. And that's the problem now. Everybody says, oh, you're a science denier with certain things and stuff like that. Well, the science says this and the science says that. People don't understand. Scientists are what? They're human beings, right? Human beings can be influenced by their own personal beliefs. Scientists can be bought. Okay, we saw that with Dr. Fauci. Scientists and doctors and all that, they have opinions, and they outside influences can do that to people. And peer-reviewed sources and all. If you get a bunch of like-minded people together that are studying something and they want to find a certain result, they're going to find that result. I'm sorry. Again, science, just like everything else that people touch, is imperfect. Okay? And, this is a prime example of how it could be manipulated. Psychology and all that, these left-wing psychologists that are coming up with all this nonsense, all this pronoun nonsense and supporting it and all that, they're lying to you. They're absolutely lying to you. Master of the TDS didn't mince words when addressing his critical flaw. There's no control group, he said, with unmistakable disgust in his voice. This guy is a researcher, and there's no control group. They've skewed all the results, and has been cited 9 times. Every single study that has cited this has cited it as being a peer-reviewed source. This means people with knowledge looked this over, realized there was no control group, saw that the results were skewed, didn't care, and published it as a scholarly article. Now, the study's content also raised eyebrows. The games showcased during these events were narrowly focused on themes tied to sexual orientation, with children participating in sessions involving such topics. The games involved were created during these jams and showcased as part of the study's findings. They center around orientation and gender politics, forcing kids to engage in pride content. The study includes photos of children playing these games. Why, man? Why do you have to go out? You know, you guys could have had your time and no one would have bothered you. But as soon as you started going after the kids, man, that was it. We're going to watch a video here. The video that we're going to show you, you can see gameplay clips from one of the games involved in the study. It features slurs, mature situations, and coarse language. It's not suitable for kids. However, Games for Diversity apparently saw no issue with exposing young people to such content. Check it out. Yes, what do you guys think of that one, man? That was pretty freaking disturbing, some of the stuff that you saw in there. Appropriate for kids? Not in the least bit. Anyway, the highly specific nature of these games calls into question the inclusivity Games for Diversity claims to champion. Master of the TDS and Writing Raven went so far as to call the study propaganda. Without a varied sample, objective methodology, or proper controls, they argue that the findings lack credibility. How many other studies have been affected by this faulty, disgusting, terrible piece of propaganda, Master of the TDS asked? Because that's what this is. This is not a study. This is propaganda. The only way I can explain this is that you did it intentionally. There's no other explanation. If you're a researcher of any validity, you should know better. Words are tough this morning. The fact that this study's been cited 9 times only deeply concerns about its influence on academic and industry discussions. The publication's presence on Google Scholar lends it a veneer of legitimacy that critics argue it does not deserve. Games for Diversity also made waves for its hand in helping to create a mobile game marketed to children about a magical drag performer as part of its game jam system. So it's always got to be centered around crap like that. And that's what's really crappy, and that's what's really weird. Everything's got to be centered around the sexuality, the gender, something like that. You can't just have a game with characters in it. You know, they got to be gay, they got to be trans, they got to be this, that, and the other thing. Why? If you watch that video, and you did, if you watch this video, you saw what was going on in there. Would you want your kids exposed to that kind of thing? You know, there's no reason for it. And we've seen so much of that going on here in the States lately with teachers and books. There's been a big crackdown across the U.S. with that. A lot of teachers losing their jobs because they're exposing their kids to all this pride nonsense. You know, back in the day, when I was a kid, there used to be like rainbows in the classroom representing the color schemes, you know, orange, indigo, violet, yellow, red, blue, and green. I still remember that as a kid because it represented the prismatic colors of the rainbow and nothing else. You know, teachers are afraid to put that up now because they're afraid it's going to be seen as a pride thing, right? That's crazy, you know. Why would... And as a kid, I didn't know anything about my teachers. I knew, you know, Mr. Smith or Mrs. Jones, whatever. I knew their name. And that was it. I didn't know if they were married. I didn't know if they had a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, a husband. I didn't know if they had kids, grandkids, whatever. I didn't care. They were my teacher. And as far as I knew, they didn't exist outside of the classroom. They crawled out from under the classroom in the morning, went in and taught class all day, and then crawled back into the cave underneath it. As far as I was concerned, I didn't see them at the stores and all that. I'm sure I would have run into them here and there or whatever, but I don't ever recall that happening. I didn't live in a small town. But these days, these people are like, yeah, I like to share with my students, that blah, blah, I'm this and I'm that, and they need to know this and understand that. And no, they don't, man. You don't need to expose them to that kind of stuff. And because you do, then they ask questions. These are uncomfortable questions that these kids don't need to be asking. And if parents want to teach them that, that's on the parents, right? If my kid came home, and let me tell you, something similar to this happened a couple years ago with my stepkid, and it lit me up. And I'm not going to go into details about it, but he made some kind of statement, and we got to the root of it and put an end to it real quick. But you don't expose kids to stuff like that they don't understand, and then they come up with these weird concepts and all that, and start asking these questions. Then you got that whole internet out there, and they start looking it up on the internet. Then they get drawn in to these weird groups of people that are out there, these groomers and stuff like that. It's absolutely disgusting. It seems like it always comes back to looking for the kids. You got to protect your kids. If you got kids out there, stand up for them. Keep an eye on them. Protect them. Anyway, the Gothic Therapy hosts have vowed to keep investigating and exposing any further misconduct. Good luck on that. I hope you do. Menno Van Pelt Dean's continued involvement in projects related to children, particularly in areas involving sensitive topics, has drawn sharp criticism. While no direct accusations have been made, Gothic Therapy has made it clear they will not hesitate to act if further issues arise. This expose serves as a reminder to scrutinize organizations and their research claims carefully. When inclusion is used as a shield for poorly executed studies and propaganda, the industry and the very communities they claim to support suffer the most. Let me know what you think about all this. Are you surprised to see this? I'm not. We see it all the time. In video games, this is a natural venue for them to come after kids. And I've said it before, that's why I hate seeing this crap in games. Even if the games are aimed for adults, a lot of times somebody's little brother is going to play the game his big brother's playing. So forth and so on. And eventually it's going to trickle down into the games for kids. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell for notifications. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, peace.